Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett, are you moving?
I do. I seek to move. Is that the expression? Seek to move the Eviction Ban Bill 2022 on behalf of People Before Profit. This is the...
You're moving formally for leave to introduce the bill.
For leave to introduce the Eviction Ban Bill 2022, which is incidentally the third bill that we have introduced in an effort to ban evictions where people would end up homeless through no fault of their own. The first of these was introduced in 2018. We introduced another one in 2020, and we sent this into the Bill's office a couple of weeks ago, and it was due to be debated in the Dáil and voted upon next week. The last time we brought one forward, it did prompt the government to introduce the COVID temporary emergency evictions ban, although they had railed against introducing such a ban up until they were forced to. And similarly, over months now, we have sought to put maximum pressure on the government to introduce or reintroduce a ban on evictions, and maybe not coincidentally, the week before this bill was due to be voted on in the Dáil. In any event, the government yesterday introduced a temporary ban on evictions. Now, we're glad that they have done that, but we still want to have this bill on the order paper because it is not clear to us that what the government are planning to introduce is going to be sufficient to deal with the blight of evictions into homelessness, which have resulted in nearly 11,000 families, households and individuals being in the appalling situation of being homeless, in emergency accommodation, often in the most dreadful of circumstances, because most cases, because landlords are selling up. Although importantly, and this will be a test of the government's proposed temporary ban, in some cases, because, as has been said on many occasions in this House over recent months, the cost of living crisis means literally, people are making choices between paying the rent and paying the bills and having the money to put food on the table for their children. And we want to say now, and our bill is clear on this, that where people are in financial difficulty, so they're not willfully not paying, but where they are in financial difficulty as a result of a cost of living crisis that is spiralling out of control, they also should be protected if they fall into arrears simply because of the extraordinary, unprecedented pressures on the cost of living, cost of food, cost of energy prices, which are crucifying so many low and middle income households. And it would be interesting to see what the government do on that. Our bill proposes that such an eviction ban would last for a year, and that then the Minister would have the power to extend that depending on whether the government had actually addressed the housing crisis, the unaffordability of rents, the lack of social and affordable housing, the numbers of people in emergency homeless accommodation, and indeed the cost of living crisis, which is also fueling the housing crisis. So we are going to keep this in waiting, this bill, now that the government have been forced to move, but we will introduce it and table it for voting as soon as it is necessary if the government fails to deliver on the solutions necessary to prevent the blight of homelessness and evictions into homelessness and address the deeper underlying issues of homelessness and evictions. And I just say to the ministers and so on, I mean, if you take Jennifer, for example, who was on the news yesterday, who was a case that I'm dealing with, if you take Graham and Patricia Knight, who I brought to public attention in the Dáil a few weeks ago, if you take a couple in Blackrock I'm dealing with at the moment who are now overholding, who are being evicted from a house they've lived in since the 1950s with their kids, and who are terrified about the prospect of being evicted. Them and all the other thousands of people who face evictions need to be protected by this government, and we need sustainable, secure, long-term solutions in terms of social and affordable housing. If the government does not deliver on that, then we will have no choice but to push for this bill to be voted on in the Dáil
Thank you,
when necessary.
The question is the bill being opposed? No. So the